5:15, we'll call the meeting to order. Agenda item number 2, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? Okay, none heard. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, approval of the minutes dated March 11th. Is there a motion for that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Scray, second by Mr. Marler. There's no public for public commentary. City minutes, just city manager, we call roll.
Ryan Scray,
Yes.
James Marler,
Yes.
Thomas Tucker,
Yes.
Corey, David Switzer,
Yes.
Corey Langford.
Yes.
Y'all aren't in seats.
That's all right.
Like I gotta figure this out.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 4. So begin review of section 8, police power through 9 general laws. So Mr. Switzer, I believe, has submitted documents. Has everybody received that?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Switzer.
All right. Well, I'll just catch it. We talked about it a little bit a month or so ago, so I'll just kind of state a little bit about my observations and experience with this, and then some of the more recent things. There are, in my opinion, there are few things worse than abusing power. And I heard even just recently, at the recent town hall of a misuse of authority in my book. I know Holly. I don't know if you guys heard. There was a lady that came up here, and the police were called on her for her kids playing in the front yard. And police came, 3 of them, knocked on her door, questioned her, asked her for her driver's license. And I would have just said, get off my property. But, she doesn't know. I know her. I know that whole group. I know each of her kids and her husband. I know all of that group. And in her homeschooling group. And for something, according to her, they threatened to, I don't know what you call it here, Child Protective Services, CSS, on her for her 5-year-old playing in the
DCF, Department of Children and Family.
Okay. And to me, I'm not saying I know the whole story. I've just talked to them about it. And I see that a lot. There's a lot of distrust, specifically to Flock. Another friend of mine made a mistake. Let's just call him Jack and Jill. Jack made a mistake. He was caught drinking and driving, right? And he lost his license. So Jack has a nice car with air conditioning. His wife Jill doesn't. Jack's not working. Jill says, hey, it's the middle of summer. I'm going to use the nice car with air conditioning to go to work. So she goes to work. She comes home. She gets tagged by she passes one of our Flock cameras. City of Lynn Haven policemen. They get alerted when you're on a hot list. He goes to the house, and she's going into the house, and it's the arresting officer, Jack's arresting officer, and he said, I just wanted to make sure that Jack wasn't driving. So it's like, we don't need police to be doing these kind of things.
Is that an example from outside of Lynn Haven?
That was here.
That was in Lynn
That was
Haven.
in Lynn Haven.
Okay.
Yep.
So you say the hot list? Did he have a warrant? Did he have no driver's license? That's why. 'Cause
Yeah,
the tag
he had his license
assigned to him,
suspended.
and okay.
Yes.
I'm just trying to be clear on why.
So like under current policy, was there under current policy, not proposed policy, but under current policy, was there a police reason to be on the hot list for him? Like, do they do that for everybody that has their license revoked?
The police officer thought that he was driving the car. Okay, so the car got tagged because it's on the hot list
Why is it on the hot list?
because he lost his license.
So everyone who has, so if my license gets suspended, I'm on the hot list now?
The tag's gonna come back as driver's license suspended, and they're gonna pull you
But
over.
why is my tag on the hot list? Do
Yeah,
they do that?
good
They do that for
If your
every
license is
single person that has
suspended,
a
yeah, it's just-
suspended license that has
it's
their
part of the
vehicle
system.
registered to them?
Since the
Because they
person
can
doesn't
do
have a
it.
license.
Yeah.
So what I'm talking about tonight, in the big picture, is we have dictatorial policing in Lynn Haven. We have dictatorial policing in Bay County. I want a more democratic policing that is friendly to the community, because there's I've never lived in a city where I wasn't happy to, where I didn't hear the good stories about police and have trust. It was just like a default in me, like, okay, you know, these are good guys and they're doing their best, but then you come here and it's like, oh, hell's busting loose, and it's like they have a long way to go. Like hiring Chief Blanchard, it seems like a good guy. I don't know him. I default to like trusting usually, but here I have to like reserve myself. In Bay County, there are 100. Okay, you guys, there's 160 flock cameras in Bay County. And I've been to the Bay County Commission meetings. I've been to Panama City Beach Commission meeting and ours. I've seen every video on every committee meeting that dealt with flock. It's not been discussed. It's been in our, let's just stick with us. It's, it was just, you know, Chief Ramey just said, oh, it's a license plate reader and we need more of them. We need to catch the bad guys. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. But then you look into it and it's so much more. There's 4 of them here and 1 portable one. And this to me, like I have a security camera and I'm fine with that. I think everybody who has one should, but to me, it's a completely different world when it's the government who has these. So we're told it's a license plate reader when in reality, they don't need your license plate to know your vehicle. They can tell by, you know, by a dent or whatever, a scratch in your car, a bumper sticker, AI figures it all out for them. I would think that, oh, when you pass it, beep, you're clean. That's pretty much it. But they retain your data, the police do, for 30 days. And if you're on the hot list, it could be up to 3 years if there's an investigation or something like that. So I have a big problem with that, and it feels real Big Brother to me. I'm super tempted to just say, let's get rid of it and let's send that to the commissioners. But I don't think, I mean, they already voted on it. That's another thing. What I've proposed, I believe, and I work under the opinion that the city commissioners had no idea what flock was. I've emailed a few of them. They're like, oh, well, this is a great, one of them said, oh, this is a great citizen commissioner deal where we're able to flesh this out. And I'm like, there's a big gap in our commissioners to me about how they handled this. Because there were no questions asked. There was no guardrails. There wasn't anything brought up about the Fourth Amendment. Like, hey, is this something that we even want to do? It's just like, hey, let's just trust Chief Ramey, and I wish we could. I hope to build to that one day, but it feels like overreach. And if I can't, I couldn't figure out a way to just get rid of it now. I mean, that to me is my long-term aim. But now I think it just needs to be managed. I have a public records request that I sent with my material for tonight from the Panama City Police Department. At first, I was getting all this feedback like, oh, well, this hardly ever happens. It's police misuse this out in Colorado or California, or the federal government gets access to this information, which they have. For ICE purposes, they've gone to no Kings rallies, so it gets political too. And the misuse is not far away. It's in Panama City Police Department. It's been misused multiple times, and according to their recent audit, it's been misused in Apalachicola, where a police officer or maybe sheriff's officer tracked a guy's daughter who hadn't done anything wrong. And we don't know about Lynn Haven. We have no idea because there were no guardrails set when this came out. There's no audits, and nothing like that. So I feel like this proposal and what we can work out is satisfactory for today. And I think it needs to be something that the commissioners really should do. So there are some things in there that I added that might not legally be able to happen, but I'm just going to throw it out there and see what happens. So are there any questions about that? I was trying to explain.
Yeah, so you mentioned two things. One, you said you had a long-term goal, but then you retracted and said that you had a more specific goal. So what is your end outcome goal with this Section 8 proposal change for the charter?
Guidelines and guardrails.
Yeah, I want to limit it. I don't want them holding my data for more than a day.
So holding data timeframes, that's an operational aspect. Now, if you look at the U.S. Constitution, the Florida Constitution, they don't talk about operational aspects in the Constitution. Constitution's like a high-level thing.
Oh, okay. So
So I think
got
you're
the-
focused more, I think for this to be a successful outcome for what you want, and I do believe there needs to be guardrails and guidelines in place. So if you wouldn't mind for a minute, just kind of listen to what I'm proposing because it's actually advocating for what you want.
Yeah.
I think the focus in the charter section shouldn't be on specific things. For example, you put a specific scope of items, ALPR, drones. What you're factoring in here is you're confining this to a very small area, and you're not thinking about what future technologies could exist, things that we haven't thought up yet. The charter, rather than focusing on operational aspects, needs to be a bigger picture topic. It needs to say, rather than what it says now, which Section 8 is very small, right? So what it needs to do is to achieve what you're wanting, guardrails and guidelines, is to expand out and task that the commission shall do these things. The commission shall review, policies. The commission shall institute prohibitions, and rather than getting on the specifics and the operational side in the charter, let's look at tasking the commission to do that operational job. And they don't have a choice because if it's in the charter, they have to do it.
Okay.
Right. So rather than getting very into the weeds in the charter, let's focus on what we want the commission to eventually have to do, which is pay attention to this issue and actually do something about it. And let's think big picture for the charter. You
Okay.
know?
Yeah, so like the commission shall, yeah, I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
that's true. And I'm just at a starting point. So, I appreciate that feedback. So,
Let me ask that. And Amy, maybe you could help out here. Obviously, in the bigger cities, there's more of this going on. You have more flock families and probably Orlando and I-4 in that area. Is there any items going from the legislature on policing this or having something out there from a statute standpoint to do what Mr. Swisser's looking at here?
I don't know.
Sort
I
of
don't know. I
Florida
could
State
find out,
statute?
but I
Yeah.
don't know what the legislature, if they've acted. And
I'm sure there will.
to your question, session just ended. I don't know. I don't feel like I heard anything that came in on any of my League of Cities alerts to raise the flag. So I don't think so. I don't think the legislature successfully addressed this issue this session.
I know it is in Georgia and especially in Atlanta, which is where the guys are from.
Yeah.
They went to Georgia Tech.
yeah.
And now in Atlanta, the state legislatures
And
look
button
at
it
it.
down,
Yeah, they're starting to do exactly what you're
yeah. I'm
talking
sure
about,
they
because
are.
it was used in different manners, different fashions, and what originally it was put out there for.
So I just did a quick Google for you. House Bill 543 and Senate Bill 543 were introduced to look at surveillance and restrictions.
This is at the state level.
Yep, at state level. House Bill 543 died in returning messages on March 13th. And I don't see a current status for the Senate bill. So, I mean, it's in its infancy.
Okay.
This is probably something that's going to take, just the pace of
They're
governance,
chasing
right?
the technology.
This is something that's going to happen eventually, But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Mr. Switzer's goal is that, come April 2027, we could pass a referendum for a charter amendment that actually touches on this topic and requires the city, the commission, and by extension, the city, the police department, to take this matter seriously. And I know you mentioned your long-term goal is to get rid of them. I can just let you know now, I'm not going to support that, but I do support guardrails and guidelines, strong policy, strong misuse outcomes. Like if you misuse it, you're
Strong
terminated.
oversight, I mean,
Yeah, strong oversight, all of that. We can put something in the charter that requires the commission and the city to pay attention and do that stuff and talk about that and not let them off the hook, as some people say they're off the hook right now. Well, let's put them on the hook and say, well, if this passes the referendum, you have to start paying attention to this and working on making sure that none of our rights are violated, and not only rights violations, but also that it's going to be done in a very transparent and fair way. Like I don't want like, for example, I have the question. So if my license gets suspended, then automatically anybody who uses my truck's getting pulled over? That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I understand that they may want to keep tabs on if somebody with a suspended license is driving, but if you have multiple drivers in the home, then that's a moot point at that point.
I pulled over many a person that was registered to a plate that had a warrant or suspended license that wasn't driving.
Yeah, it's the same thing
Not
with
by
the
the flock cameras, but just by my running it. through
It's the same thing with those school zone speed cameras. There's a reason that you as a driver don't get a ticket, and it's because they don't know who's driving the vehicle,
Or toll roads or anything else.
Miss Amy, we'll go to you, and then I want to catch Mr. Marner's
Table.
comments
Table.
in general before we go any further. Yes, ma'am.
But they're not.
So,
I'm not gonna lean on you.
at the risk of going all law professor on you, I just want the group to understand that the police power, the way it's referenced here, speaks to the power of the commission to regulate. It's not speaking to law enforcement power specifically, that's included. And so artificial intelligence and AI, these regulations are certainly relevant to the way the city commission regulates in all areas. But if anyone thought this section was only talking about what the police department can do, it's so much bigger than that. And I just
Yeah,
wanna
I
make
mean,
sure
we
everyone understands.
really what we would need to be doing here is we need to be talking about how much authority do we want to give the commission to be able to say, hey, city manager, the police chief, reports to you. We're tasking you with requiring the police to put these policies in place and stuff like that, right?
And constitutionally, they have the authority unless it's been prohibited to them.
Okay.
So your job, really, when it comes to AI and surveillance, is to define what they can't do, what they shall not do.
With it.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, with something like this, where we could say, the city commission shall by ordinance establish requirements for public notice and approval of surveillance technologies, written use policies, data governance, retention and access, and periodic reporting to the public. Putting something like that in the charter would be appropriate because it's high level. How the commission actually executes on that, they do so by ordinance or whatever mechanisms they need to fulfill these charter requirements. Okay.
So I think we've heard from almost everybody except for Mr. Marler and myself. And then, after that, I think there's some good discussion that's already, been had. I'd like to maybe delve into aid and kind of some of the things that Mr. Scrady's talking about doing, instead of that granular operational level, akin to what Miss Myers is bringing up as well is, what do what does the charter referendum look like as far as implementing what you've submitted with that? So, Mr. Marler, your thoughts on
Yeah,
this?
so, couple of things. First of all, just on a couple of instances that you told us about, just being the devil's advocate, right? We'll go to the other side of it. I don't know that side of what the children were doing, what was going on, and I'm not gonna propose what was happening. But let's just say they were playing in their own yard, and the police came over and harassed her otherwise when they were on their own property, right? That's an issue. Now, if they were throwing something at the road or going out in the road or anything else to get technical, the police should get involved. As far as the wife driving the car and the license plate being registered to the husband, you know, we have to look at both sides of that. Somebody gets a DUI, we could all make that mistake, let's just be honest. But they did break the law, and the police were trying to make sure that person's not harming the public or otherwise. So we can't go in with a mindset of it feels like overreach. We have to go in with a mindset it's overreach. We have to prevent overreach, right? We don't want to just make it sound like, well, I feel like this is, I don't like it. It has to be, we have to prevent through our powers or however we can do it to get the commission to have the power to prevent overreach. And that's kind of our goal, right? So that's just my two things.
Yeah, and that's coming from somebody who's gone through police academy.
Yeah, I was a police officer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just
So
from experience.
so you have a former police officer saying we have to prevent overreach. You know?
I mean, you have to. That's our goal.
Yeah.
So, I just had a few questions. So, with the way that we're operating today, or the way rather that we're policing today, do you personally feel like your Fourth Amendment right is being violated?
I do.
Okay. Have you looked to talk to an attorney, a constitutional attorney, to sue the
No,
city?
I'm in the top of the first inning, so
Okay.
yeah. I
Why
haven't.
and why not?
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I'm closer to putting in an ethics violation to the commissioners than I am getting an attorney,
Okay.
because in my opinion, and what they've told me, there wasn't any due diligence about it.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm at the top of the first, so I have tons of options, and that's,
Okay. So based on what you submitted with the restrictions here, do you feel like that this would improve crime within the city, or do you think that crime would increase in the city, or
I
just
don't-
remain neutral?
I don't think Lynn Haven has a big crime problem
Why do you believe that? Do you think that's the way
because
we're
of
policing?
the statistics I've looked at. It doesn't look like there's a big crime problem. I mean, the police are the first to throw out, "Oh, we saved a kidnapped girl," and it's like you go online and you listen to all these police chiefs saying the exact same thing. And I'm all for saving the girl, but the kidnapped victim. But I just don't believe from the information that I see that there's a huge crime problem. You know, a lot of what they say is, and what Chief Ramey said specifically is, oh, we're able to nab 40 vehicles that were stolen that just happened to pass through Lynn Haven. You know, so that's not crime in Lynn Haven. That's just guys, stolen car coming from Alabama, coming through here to go to the beach. So I just don't think that there's I don't think the Bay County would miss 4 flock cameras in Lynn Haven when there's 160 other ones.
So do you think maybe that the reason that there's not a crime problem in Lynn Haven is because of the way that we're allowed or policing right now?
Well, no, there wasn't a crime spike from before 2021 when the first one came in until now. There's not a big crime spike.
So the flock cameras have had zero impact on crime or
I'm
anything
not
else?
saying that they're not having an effect on crime. I'm just saying that in my mind, the balance of taking a picture, hundreds of thousands of pictures of people who've done nothing wrong, getting rid of that outweighs a minimal, maybe, I mean, we're just assuming that there would be a downward trend if they removed lock cameras.
I'm kind of I'm kind of like what Mr. Scray is. I'm, I'm not saying that, that there should just be, a free for all on surveillance or whatever. I think there has to be checks and balances within every level of government, whether we're talking about policing, whether we're talking about spending, money, budgets, or whatever. We just had an audit, for goodness sake, to evaluate how we spend our money. So I believe that an effective government has to have checks and balances in place. And I would absolutely support, internal audits, whether that's policy, et cetera. But I also agree with the way that it needs to be in the charter, like what Mr. Scray said, to enable the commission to restrict what can be done or from that lens. I think this is at a very granular level, operationally speaking, that I think it gets pretty deep into the weeds as far as the charter is concerned.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just a couple more things, and this is just food for thought, again, and driving's a privilege in the state of Florida. It's not right? And it's also not illegal to film someone in public. So when they're taking pictures of your license plate going out a public highway, it's not a Fourth Amendment violation, right?
If
And
it
we can all
was,
agree on that.
if it was just that, yeah.
But I'm just saying, and law enforcement within their capacity is using that tool in order to pursue criminals, so to speak, right? And then you take that and those 40 cars you talked about that were stolen that came through Lynn Haven, they may not have been stolen in Lynn Haven, but a majority of the time, the people that are in those vehicles are coming somewhere to commit more crime. And they don't want to be in their car. They want to be in somebody else's car. They don't have one. We have to look at every aspect. We can't be blind, just about one particular thing.
I think we also have to factor in too, like you're a member of this board. You obviously care more than just this issue, right? You've been very involved in discussions up to this point. I suspect that you'd be very involved in other discussions as we go through the charter. You want to be successful on this. You want to get good guardrails and guidelines in place. Do you believe that over 50% of the public would vote to get rid of the flock cameras if this was on referendum?
That was my next comment.
But based on your survey of the community and knowing, do you truly believe that 50% would vote to get rid of the flock cameras today?
I don't believe that 50% of Lynn Haven would vote to have them.
But they're already there. So at this point, you're saying with what you proposed, you want to effectively get rid of them. So do you think people would, if people said, do you want to get rid of the flock cameras, would they vote yes?
When is the vote? 2027?
April 2027.
Well, it could be between now and April 27th.
Yeah, it
because
could
there's
be
multiple
earlier.
elections that are ballot opportunities right at the charter.
I think there might be enough steam by that time to get rid of flock cameras.
Do you
Yeah.
think people would be on board with voting to put more oversight, guardrails, and guidelines in, kind of like what we're saying is where it's a higher level? And then once that's passed, anyone can put pressure on the commission to say, hey, in the charter, you have to talk about this issue. You have to work on these policies. I think that's where you're going to be successful with your proposal. And I do, like I said earlier, I do think it needs to be done. For an example, you talked about child abductions. So if every community like Lynn Haven voted for what you want, which is to get rid of all the flock cameras, there was two sisters that interacted with a man on Roblox. You know what Roblox is?
Yeah.
Yeah. He drove from Nebraska to like the Orlando area, picked them up, and he did not get caught with them for several hours. He got caught in Georgia because he got picked up on a flock camera because they figured out his license plate, right? Mm-hmm. So that's like, and I know you said everybody always goes there, but as a parent, like we understand that you would want that for your child. So it's not about getting rid of them or keeping them. It's about the oversight and the guardrails and the guidelines. Are they going to go away completely? Realistically, David, probably. Are we going to have a ton more of them in Lynn Haven, we probably don't have the need for that. Are we going to have some? Yes, most likely they're gonna stick around. What do we need to focus on to make sure that they're not misused, that the data's not kept too long, and that it's not used by other agencies? Like, does an agency in Montana need our data, for example? Like Georgia, Alabama, maybe some of the federal agencies, but that's the kind of stuff that the commission can work on if they're required to, because our charter tells them you have to do this. So I think reframing what your goal is here for this on the higher level charter picture is probably going to garner more success right now. And like you said, you're in the top of the first inning. You don't win the series in one inning, right? So focus on winning this inning in this way. And so that way, maybe in 5 years, when there's another charter review, maybe there's more success, because 5 years later, well, look, the commission's done all these policies. We have periodic, we have monthly reviews, we have human oversight. Decisions are not being made based solely on AI, stuff like that. And based on all these audits that we've had over the last 3 years, this is our findings. We did a great job on that charter review, but we couldn't have anticipated some of these things. And so now the next charter review committee, we need you to tweak the charter, because the charter shouldn't be easy to change. I mean, it's not. You got to do this, or the commission's got to propose a referendum. It's got to go to referendum. You got to convince people to vote for the referendum. It's a lot of work. So I think focusing more on a small victory now is going to be better long term for the community. And that small victory now is, let's look at, like Amy said, what can we put in the charter now that forces the commission to pay attention to this and take action on these types of things?
Ask one quick thing here. We're talking police action here. Is any department in the city besides the police department using the data from flock cameras?
Law enforcement strictly.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay.
It's-
Yeah, only law. It's Section 8 of police powers.
Yeah.
Only law enforcement officers in the city of Lynn Haven have accounts for it,
Okay.
and not even. I don't even think it's all of them.
Yeah, I was looking at section B here,
And then
with
the communication.
no city department. I mean, why would the recreation department want the data from the flock?
No, it's
Yeah.
not. It's law enforcement powers and those involved. But
Oh, I would imagine. So, I mean, you wrote this, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that if I was a sneaky member of the city commission or a staff member, and I wanted to find a way to get around such a policy, would just create a new department. And if I limited it only to the police department, well, that's not the police department. It's, the safety department, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's really simple.
yeah.
But on your point about communicating with other, cross country or otherwise, the example you brought up is why you have to cross reference, and
Yeah.
I'm assuming procedural, that's the way it works. So the system knows, somebody here knows that they put something out, that something's going on.
Yeah, that's another big problem, is you hear, that it's linked to Bayrock. I like to call it, they call it the Regional Operations Center. I call it Rights Occasionally Considered, because they have a big old surveillance room with, live streaming video from 3 different agencies.
Oh, yeah.
They cross-section that with Flock, and, it's like,
It's like Person of Interest, the TV show.
I haven't seen that, but if
Oh, watch that, David. You'll.
what is that Netflix?
I don't know what it's on.
I'm
right
already
now.
paranoid. Is that gonna make me?
Your brain will.
Right up your alley, buddy. It's right up your alley.
It's all the things that you hate about surveillance, but to help people. So you'll go crazy with it.
Well,
I got something, this has nothing really to do with the police powers, but anybody here have State Farm insurance?
I do.
I do.
Do you get the little thing that you have to put in your car?
You can choose to do it. I
No.
don't do it.
Do it because it's gonna lower
I'm not
your
doing
rate,
it.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they're watching my braking, my speeding,
Everything.
everything. And how do they know it's me and it's not the wife? Well, when the wife gets in the car.
Because of your phone.
Because of the phone, that's right.
They know everything.
You get
They know everything.
But I will say this, and it isn't related to surveillance because, for example, I have USA and I did opt into that and it is saving me money. But I spent way too long reading through it all, and they very clearly tell you everything that they can track, how it's used, everything. And they even tell you, and there's a section where who that data can be shared with. Right, like a lot of auto manufacturers and people buy that data from the insurance companies because it's useful data to them, right? And they tell you how you can opt out from having your information sold too.
You just have to know this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta read.
But I think
I didn't want to bring
yeah.
that up.
So
$10 a year without-
so what do you think about that? Like because I think there's some things your proposal does great, but it's just too
It's too much.
detailed,
Yeah.
and I think we need to be at a higher level
Yeah.
so we can be successful. You know, because whatever we come up with has to go through the 5 of them, and you already have one of them, Commissioner Warwick, who has already I know there's exchanges there, right?
Yeah.
So find a way to win him over and support this, and I think the way to do that is high level and saying, hey, I understand that this is emerging technology, it's new, and we're waiting on the state. For example, the state bills just failed again. So now we have to wait a whole nother year for them. And so let's put Lynn Haven at the forefront, be the spearhead of this and say, hey, this is how you regulate in your city to make sure your citizens are being taken care of. Instead of David's mission to get rid of flock cameras, it's David's mission to regulate flock cameras. Right?
I like the
Yeah,
guardrails,
that's why,
too.
that's why I don't have something saying let's get, let's.
Yeah,
ban
yeah, yeah.
flock.
I get
Well,
it.
you have T-Flock, Lynn Haven.
Well, that, I do want to,
I would be interested in
That
that.
is- that is-
I'm just saying, shift your goal so you can win this inning. And
Not
if you
far.
win this inning, like if this passes, like we can come up with something that passes
Yes,
5-0,
in Florida,
then
the laws
I think the
are-
community as a whole wins that inning as
And
well.
So far, none of those cases.
Hit
and then
hard.
backing off.
Yeah, and it's all about like chipping
My
away.
wife has a
you
big
know?
problem with what I'm.
It's kind of like well, it's kind of like Corey's non-ad valorem policy too. Like we're gonna have a workshop on that. Are we gonna get everything that we agreed to in there? Probably not. But there's some key pieces in there that Corey's gonna fight really hard for. There's a key piece that I've said I'm gonna fight hard for. And so whatever we come away with is still a success for the community.
So David, to
Yes.
get you started on, to follow up on what I've heard. So the bills that were proposed and failed, one of them in part was an AI Bill of Rights, for instance. Just because the state didn't succeed doesn't mean you can't use that model to get some of those elements into the Lynn Haven City Charter if you want to, but that would be a good example of the really high level stuff that you could get in the city, even if it's not available everywhere in the state.
Yeah, I've seen that ad.
And in terms of the technologies, you want to put guardrails on. The European Union AI Act has some prohibited uses, and that may be a place to start too. Now, again, I don't know what will fly, but in terms of thinking really, really high level, those are two models of existing legislation. One passed, one didn't. That might help
Okay.
if you can find some favorite parts of that to propose.
So what passed?
In Florida, nothing. But what was proposed was that the bills he cited, one was an AI Bill of Rights. One was also, there was also a transportation bill, which I'm not sure he mentioned, but when I looked it up, it does specifically address the use of mounted cameras for specific public purposes, and it says it's prohibited for these, but it's allowed for these purposes. Again, that didn't pass either, but is along the same lines of guardrails, where it's prohibited and it's not, and under what circumstances.
Yeah, it's really more.
Yeah, and I appreciate all of
So-
that. I've never done anything like this before. And all my experience is business, not this kind of thing. So I appreciate what y'all are saying.
I can send some to you and CJ and Chris to provide him so he can continue working and come back to us. Okay. So they're gonna send you something that I kind of tweaked what you said. That maybe will get you a little further along, I think, towards what I was talking about. So I guess Where do we go from here?
As long as it wasn't drafted with AI, we don't want to use.
No, it 100%. It 100% was. I said what I liked and didn't.
There's a video.
I said what I liked and didn't like about your proposal, and it helps me over many revisions tweak it, and so it's yeah.
I will say I like the idea of putting in guidelines and guardrails. Other than that, you and I differ on a lot of things as far as what it does and doesn't do. But, so I think we do, and it's important that we put that in there somewhere.
Well, if this was, our commissioners talk about transparency all the time and accountability. So I think if I do think about this and give them that high level, but then also have some of those ordinances, which you guys can kind of help me fine tune, or that we can fine tune together.
Yeah, you can even draft ordinances for them.
Yeah, we might even be the first
Step.
city in Florida to have something
Yeah,
like this. Well, I don't know if I don't think anybody else has.
I haven't seen where else.
So.
So it's, I guess, kind of, he works on it and brings it back to us on a future agenda item?
Yeah, I think we table this, and as we continue to talk through it, we kind of further refine your draft of what we want to put into the charter, and then as that matures organically, we can talk through it and tweak it from there. I think this is a good start, obviously at the granular level, and then we're just going to kind of go up from there. And then once we get to a point to where we can just start tweaking it at that point, I think that's when we'll probably finalize Section 8. I am a little bit hesitant to move on to Section 9 until we solve Section 8, and that's just my OCD. But if you guys want to do something different, let me know.
I mean, I don't see anything tonight. I don't see anything in 9 that I just itching to talk about. So I'm okay kind of keeping 8 and 9 together.
I did have a question on 9, Miss Amy, and it talks about that the charter, should not limit the power of the city commission. If I'm reading that correctly. Nothing contained in this charter shall be construed as limiting the power of the city commission to enact any ordinance or resolution not in conflict with the Constitution of the state or with the express provisions of this charter. So I think just as we continue to talk through not only the non-ad valorem piece in 6, this section in 8, I think just going back to what Mr. Scray mentioned, and I think that had a lot of value to, how we approach what we're putting in this charter, that we're not restricting the commission from doing things, rather we're directing them what they have to do. Is that an accurate way to think about that as we continue going forward with this?
Yeah, that's a fair way to look at it.
Would that be in the wording though, or just?
I'm not saying that 9 needs to change necessarily. I'm just saying I want to make sure that, when we're making these proposals, if you will, that we're coloring within the lines, I guess, and we're kind of looking at things glass half full versus glass half empty. In other words, we're not restricting them with what they can't do. We're just telling them that, hey, you have to do it this way. That was the only question, I guess, that I had as I read through it. That was it. I'm not saying we need to change 9 or anything like that. It was really more of an understanding of, how we need to operate as far as drafting this stuff.
You have an opinion?
I'm actually gonna do a little bit of research on it. Because it's a really interesting point, actually, in terms of the drafting.
Okay.
But I'm not really comfortable giving you an answer on.
No worries.
This
And
is
yeah,
what it means, and this is what you should do.
Yeah.
I'd like to do some research actually and see how courts have interpreted that, because I know it's come up in other charter areas, particularly in South Florida, where they have said that the commission can, or particularly in the commission shall hold a referendum on certain matters, and those have been thrown out by the court. But now that you bring it up, I don't know if it's because of language like this is why it failed.
Okay.
So
No worries. Just
I
something
need
I
to connect
saw.
the
and I
dots
was
in my
like,
head, but maybe.
let me ask the pros on this. Okay, so it sounds like we're gonna table, Miss Amy, should we make a motion to table 8? How do we need to?
You can do a motion to table.
Does anyone want to make a motion for
Well,
that?
how long do you think you need to bring this back to us?
I
Next
can have it
meeting?
next time, yeah, I'll have it
Okay.
next, yeah.
So I'll
just
motion to
fine.
just table item, or section 8 and section 9 review until next meeting.
I'll second
There's a motion by Mr. Scray, a second by Mr. Tucker.
it. Pick a name today, it's fine.
To be fair, I looked you up on Facebook. I said, he goes by Tommy on Facebook. I'll put it on the slideshow, so I'm okay.
You're fine.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
repeat that last part of that motion, please? For
Oh, it's just to table this agenda item until the next meeting.
Next meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a motion, there's a second, public commentary. No public commentary. Assistant Manager, we call the roll.
Ryan Gray,
Yes.
Tommy Tucker,
Yes.
James Marlar,
Yes.
David Switzer,
Yes.
Corey Langford.
Yes. Moving on to item number 5, discussion regarding section 24, city manager residency. I believe this is Mr. Scray's item, so take it away.
Yeah, so we talked last meeting about this. So just kind of, it seemed like the four of us that were present had a general consensus that we wanted to pursue this further. So ICMA, which is the international, and I'm speaking directly to you since you weren't here last time. So the International City Manager Association, they actually talk about how more and more cities are moving away from having the hardened requirement that the city manager must live within the city limits. It's kind of outdated. We joked about, I think it was like back when they rode in on horses and stuff, right? And everyone didn't have a cell phone. So the recommendation is not necessarily to define a distance or time frame in which the city manager needs to live, but rather allow your legislative body who's hiring that individual to determine that through their hiring process as like a negotiation item, for example. So my proposal effectively is to just amend section 24 to the point where it says, during his tenure of office, he shall reside in the city, put a comma there, and put something, I'm not 100% on the language yet, but put a sentence in there that gives the commission authority to choose otherwise within, a reasonable time or distance. Now, I think we generally understood that we all kind of, like, me specifically, I'll speak for me. I don't want a city manager that lives in Mexico Beach, and I don't want a city manager that lives at the very tip top of the county or the very west end of the county, right? So I think I would like to see some kind of constraint within the charter of how far they can go. But I mean, like, we had 3 candidates, right? One of them would have needed to move 4 houses. Ridiculous. One of them is on the beach, and one of them lives in Fanning Bayou, and that's who was chosen, was Mr. Lightfoot. So I brought this up before the commission selected because I didn't know who they'd select, and I wanted to make it known that I felt this way regardless. I wanted to bring it up when timing was relevant. I thought they would have been done with this before we even got together on this. So I was really going to bring it up for the next time, but the way the cards fell and the timing fell, it became pertinent. So that's why I advanced it up. But to go further, I learned that Callaway's city manager, Eddie Cook, he actually doesn't live in Callaway.
He lives next door to me.
And where do you live?
I live on the beach.
On the beach,
And
right?
he loves it.
And-
What he loves about it is that he doesn't, when he goes to the grocery store, he doesn't hear about all the problems. And so he has an opportunity to just be Eddie and not Eddie, the city manager.
But some of the counter arguments that I've heard is, well, your city manager is not going to be invested in your city. And I don't know if you've watched any Callaway meetings, have you?
No, it's worth watching.
Eddie Cook is invested in Callaway. He's very committed to improving Callaway, making it the best community he possibly can as city manager. There's no shortage of passion that I see coming out of him for the city he works for. So to say that you have to live within the city to be passionate about the city is frankly BS. I mean, we have a member of the public here tonight, Miss Moore. She doesn't live within city limits, and she's very passionate about the
Very
city.
invested in the city.
And so this misnomer that you have to live within city limits to care about the city is just frankly BS. So I want to give, rather than being restricted to they have to live within the city limits, what I want to do is empower our legislative body to make decisions like that. Because that's really who should be making that decision. So again, I went through 4 versions of sentences and I didn't like any of them. So I just kind of wanted to circle back and say, do you have a version that kind of fits with what we're trying to do?
I do.
Okay, I'd love to hear it.
I would suggest language, if I were a member of this committee, I would suggest that he be permitted to reside in the county, within a reasonable distance approved by the commission.
Okay.
And the reason I go to county is because it provides predictability,
Yeah.
for your candidates, that at least I'm in the county.
Yeah, you have your overall, you have your drawn societal lines. You know you're gonna have to reside within these lines.
And I'm actually okay
And then the
with
commission
stopping
can actually-
there. But
But the commission can choose to restrict it
to
further.
your point, if it's important to the 3 out of the 5 that they not live in Mexico Beach and they not live at the top or they not live in Phillips Inlet, then adding that, as approved, so
Yeah.
that the commission can say
They could say
you're within the
gotta be
radius
at
or
least
you're
within
within
15
5
or
miles.
50.
of
Which
the
on a
city.
future job posting, like let's say, I don't know, let's say Mr. Lightfoot stays here for 8 years, right? And then he's moving off to do something else. If at that time they put out the posting, this is maybe where HR experience will come in. At that point, if that's what the charter says and they intend to restrict it further than the county, HR would say you should list that on your posting and how far. So from
So
City
they
Hall,
know.
whether it's City Hall out X miles radius, right? Or is it based on, how many minutes it takes to get, according to Google Maps or whatever? They would want to put that on the posting and they would be empowered to do that at that point.
I would say the only problem with radius is we're trying about a lot of water.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to take a boat every day.
I'm just saying, like, I
Yeah.
mean, if you go, oh, I live over there, but it's.
Well, I mean, like if you
100
say
miles of water.
15 miles, 15 miles can be,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But
put
the
a time
point
on it or
being, the
something.
commission can decide that at that point, if we empower them to do so, they can decide that and they would put it on the posting. So any applicant would know, for example, Mr. Detweiler would have known, oh, if I am selected, I don't need to worry about
Right,
moving.
right.
Or Mr. Lightfoot,
I can live
or,
where I'm at.
I forget the
Miss
lady's
Hart.
name, Miss Hart.
Yeah, it's-
They would know, like, maybe she was half a mile outside the radius. And so she would have known, oh, I'm just outside the radius. So if I really want this, I know I'm going to have to move.
So Phillips Inlet is 20 miles away and Mexico Beach is 25 miles away from here at City Hall.
Yeah.
By GPS.
Yeah, by GPS,
Yeah.
So 2 weeks ago, the 4 of you, I feel like I'm on board.
I think we didn't
with all
vote.
of you.
I think we just kind of had a head nod.
Well, because he wasn't
You
here,
didn't,
and
you
he
Yeah.
didn't
didn't
make
really,
sure.
you didn't really
Yeah.
care.
I didn't want to vote on it until you were here.
All 4 of you were thinking that it's okay if they're not in Haven specifically.
Well, I think it was more of a, we're okay with the commission deciding rather than there's no choice
Yeah.
because the.
We don't want to limit the
That's
pool
right.
either. Like,
Yeah.
but you need to provide predictability to the pool, and not
Yeah.
having the city unless means there's no predictability there.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Miss Amy, I think before we really go too much further in this, first of all, I had a question about I don't want to say the situation, but the what's going on right now with Mr. Lightfoot just getting hired as the city manager. Mr. Scray, I know you brought this up initially because the negotiation processes were going to be ongoing with the hiring of the city manager, whomever that was.
Right.
But obviously, the negotiations of the contract of the city manager at the time, we didn't know who that was. Those negotiations are going to be complete, over with, signed contract well before this ever makes it onto a ballot. First of all, second of all, what I'm wrestling with in my mind is since that's the case, do we address this now? Or do we address this once we get to Section 24, since it's not going to have any impact on the current situation that we're in? And then my final point, and this is really the question to you, because the way our charter reads right now, since we know that the latest, quote unquote, that this could go on the ballot would be April of 27, right? So let's just say it goes on the ballot in April of 27, whether it's, confirmed or not confirmed by the public. Between now and then, how do we proceed with what's in our charter now as it relates to Mr. Lightfoot? And I think the way I read this, and Mr. Tucker brought up a good point, it's just during the tenure. When is the tenure? Is that the day
Right.
before your contract expires?
Last
And we touched on that last meeting because
did.
I brought up, for example, the ICMA actually suggests that you give the person somewhere a reasonable amount of time to relocate,
To
so between
relocate.
6 and 12 months. So with our unique timeline, regardless of what candidate had been chosen and what I said last meeting, it still applies now that Mr. Lightfoot was chosen, and it would have whether it was Ms. Hart or Mr. Detweiler. But the commission, if they so choose, I have no idea what's going to go on in their negotiations. So I'm just thinking big picture. If they were to choose to give, follow the ICMA recommendations and provide 12 months of time, right? 12 months from now is March 2027, so before the April ballot.
Okay.
However, we have likely a referendum occurring before that. And if we're done with this and it's submitted, they could push this change to referendum in August, which would, if it were to pass, would then at that point allow the commission to decide what that reasonable distance is.
Gotcha.
Should it fail, then the candidate has 6 months to determine where they're going to
Got
reside.
a mouth on that movie.
That helps explain the timing of
Yeah.
us addressing this.
Yeah.
So thank you. Yes, ma'am. Miss CJ.
I do believe the commission has come to an agreement on the contract with them anyway.
As of 2:00 yesterday, the contract was fully baked.
Okay.
And ready to be approved, and it does address his residency requirement when he needs to move into the city. And it also acknowledges that the charter, as it's currently written, is being examined and may change during
So
his
how does that
contract
affect
term.
what we're doing?
It doesn't need to.
Right.
Do you know what kind of time
They're,
limit
they're
it is?
separate.
It doesn't need to. You can wait and do it in chapter 24 when you get to 24. I will also say, and I'm comfortable saying that because the commission can also make it their issue and change section
They need to,
24,
yeah.
'Cause they
whether
can-
or not you have brought them a recommendation on it.
Because they could choose to put as much time as they wanted, or they could choose to bring forth 24 faster. So.
I'm definitely not advocating for us to delay it or attack it now. I just want to, I want to understand what are the repercussions, if you will, with either of those decisions timing wise. That was the only
As
reason I
Mr.
asked the question.
Scrage, I felt like very well stated, you have an opportunity to deal with the issue and present it to them in a way where they can deal with the issue sooner rather than later, but you don't have to because they have the authority to deal with it in the contract, and they have. And they also have the independent authority to revise or put this charter amendment on the ballot whenever they want.
Whether we've proposed it or not.
Yeah.
Sure.
Would you recommend it, and I'm being a stickler about this during the tenure, because to me, it's just so vague. It's like I said before, first day, last day, who knows? It's a tenure.
I think where you can amend the charter to give it predictability for all parties, you should.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of saying during the tenure, saying as defined by the commission, because again, to me, that's a negotiation thing. If the commission wants to say, hey, you need to be within 15 miles of City Hall within 6 months, then cool. That's what the 5 people we elected have decided.
And then negotiating a contract, so,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
back and forth,
Yeah.
but not during the tenure.
Because during the tenure actually opened up this opportunity overall, because during the tenure, then it's like, okay, well, there's no time constraint. So when do you decide? So it's really up to the commission to decide, in my opinion. And I don't know if I'm off base on that, Ms. Myers, or not, but at that point, it's vague enough that the commission could decide. And I don't know what they put in that final contract. Are you allowed to share that?
I think it's public record.
It was handed out to the commission, so at the meeting, so it must be.
It'd have to be public record.
Yeah.
Right, but I think they were still making changes to it. But that's okay. Whatever they handed out was public record.
So what's been proposed was what?
A year.
Okay, hold
Okay.
But-
Yeah, it
Or
was a
depending,
year.
a year,
Yeah.
depending on whatever change may come.
That's good.
They
Which-
are contemplating
which
a
falls
change in this
within-
section, I can tell you
Which
right
falls
now.
within what the ICMA even suggests.
That's
Yeah.
reasonable.
Can imagine
So-
living standing by you, not being able to, like having to pick up and move and.
Oh, it's
weird.
terrible.
I mean, I was actually flabbergasted more by Mr. Detweiler's
Yeah.
situation. Would he have been chosen?
2 hours.
It was literally 4 houses away,
4 hours.
or convince his 3 neighbors to annex in so he could.
Hard sell.
Boom.
So I spoke to several different residents on this particular item, and all of them were on opposite ends of the spectrum from one another. And the reason I knew that where they stood, and that's why I wanted to hear all of their perspectives. And one of the things that I was kind of wrestling with in my mind, one resident made the comment to me that they believed that the city manager should live within the city limits of Lynn Haven, because everyone who is part of the city staff that enforces laws and drives rules and regulations should live within the city. And my question to that response was, okay, I said, all right, if that's the position, then we need to talk about the police chief, the code enforcement officer, the city clerk. We need to really look at all of these individuals, because if they're responsible for making decisions,
They're part of it.
Miss Kiki,
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
where
true.
she lives, but she's responsible for spending the money that we're
Like-
giving. So that's what I'm trying to wrestle with. Then is that if we say that this one individual has to live in the city, then that's a city officer per what we've proposed, right? So do the other city officers now need to be
Need to, yeah,
required to
right.
live within the city? So that's just what the lens in which I'm looking at it through, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? So look, I'm not the only other position rather that I'm with this, and I've mentioned it slightly before on other topics, is I like giving the commission the latitude to make a decision one way or the other. However, what I don't want to give them the opportunity to do is, let's say, for instance, Jane Doe is the city manager. Okay, Jane Doe has made some decisions that may not be popular with 3 of the 5 elected officials. Okay. Maybe not necessarily enough to fire Jane Doe, but maybe a commissioner would make a motion to change the radius.
And get 2 to agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Knowing that 3 of the 5 elected
They
officials
kind of force them out.
would vote, to
Yeah.
really kind of death by attrition here. And that's where, and again, that's some political prowess that I would hope
it's
wouldn't
actually
happen.
it's actually a really good counterpoint to bring up on if we were to change this, something that you would need to be mindful of, because is it going to happen? Hopefully never.
Right.
Could it? Yes.
Yeah. So based on that, kind of where I'm with and all
Like,
of
could you say
all the
something
stuff-
like for the duration of their contract and be covered by that?
That's kind of where my head was at.
Yeah, I don't think that. I think if you sign a contract saying that, hey, you're accepting me where I live, I
Yes,
don't
yes,
think
you
that's
could. But that's a contract issue, not a charter issue.
Right. Okay. So the counter to that is, it doesn't need to be in the charter. The counter is, once the commission signs the contract, if they say, hey, we want to vote to amend it, well, it's a 2-way contract, and the city manager could say, I'm not willing to. So then their only recourse is, if they feel that strongly about it, is to terminate.
And then they're in breach and
breach
they
of
have to
contract.
pay.
Yeah.
But if you feel strongly about
Well,
it.
except
you
it's a
can
at-will.
Go ahead and address the
that
contract
doesn't make
term
difference.
right here. I mean,
Well-
you can say shall establish residence in Bay County within 6 months after his appointment to get rid of the during your tenure. And then just leave it in Bay County, and then there's no playing with it.
Right.
It's-
And that's where my
Not even
brain.
giving discretion, just saying, like, because you said the furthest point away from us in the county was what?
Well,
20?
Mexico Beach is 25 miles
25
GPS from
miles.
here. And Phillips
Okay.
Inlet
Keep in
is 20
mind, we're
miles.
going to have those teleporting machines that will pop us, fly
We
us.
can't
from
use.
spot
We
to
won't be
spot.
used by AI.
Listen,
Not in this city.
I watched the Jetsons
I'm not
as a
gonna have
kid,
my
and I'm just
molecules
saying, I'm
stuck
feeling
up in the
severely
room.
let down at this point.
Miss Kiki, you had a comment.
I have a different view on this topic.
Okay.
As is human nature. When people make decisions, they weigh how those decisions will affect them personally. So if you require the city manager to be within inside the city limits, and there are decisions to be made about taxes, or fees, or utilities, it is human nature for that person to think, how is this going to affect me personally? And there's the potential for that to weigh on their decision.
Both good and bad though. Because the city manager who has to live in the city could say, I don't like this proposal that the commission's coming up with, or the city staff is coming up with, because it's gonna result in me paying more taxes, right?
Correct.
That's the flip side of what you're saying.
Correct.
So,
Well, to your
think that's
point,
her point.
that's the reason.
Oh, so it could be either way.
commissioners and mayor have to reside in Lynn.
Yeah.
That's, you know,
Well,
So-
there's a finite space in Lynn Haven as well. We have a finite
sure.
boundary
Absolutely.
at this point, which makes it difficult
So-
to make all these folks
Yeah.
live in.
so Mr. Marler kind of took exactly what I was going to say. The city manager does not make policy.
Right.
The city manager does not determine taxes. The city manager does not determine non-ad valorem assessments.
Shouldn't ever.
The elected officials are the ones who determine that. By rule, they have to qualify to be an elected official. There's a reason why Mr. Warwick lives in Lynn Haven and not Panama City Beach. So, you know, with that, and I appreciate that because, you know, Miss Kiki, you don't know how happy it would make me to watch Mr. Lightfoot write a check for a non-ad valorem. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
So we are.
Yeah, no. But my point is, and thank you,
Yeah, they have to-
you know, our elected officials are the ones who set policy and they're,
However, it doesn't get to the elected official unless it gets through
Sure.
the city minutes.
That's indirect influence, right?
right.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of where I'm at with this is a finite or distance, or I don't want to say finite, a defined distance, whether it's, I don't care whether it's minutes from the edge of the city limits, minutes from town hall, within Bay County. I don't necessarily mind how we do it, but I don't want whatever we put in the charter, I don't want it to change based on the commission. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, you just want to change it one time and not
Yeah.
every time. So, I mean, so Mexico Beach, according to Google Maps, is 43 minutes away from City Hall. I mean,
Right now,
yeah.
Well, I think distance is finite, whereas the minutes, I think, change on the time of
Yeah.
day.
So to me, like 25 miles being, 40 minutes, that's pretty far. And I say that as somebody who used to commute an hour and a half one way for work. I would drive 45 minutes from Colorado Springs to Denver, get on a train and go another 45 minutes into downtown Denver. It was miserable. And the number of opportunities for me to be late because of outside influence, car accidents, whatever, just multiplied profusely to the point where, to me, I think if we're going to do a finite distance, which I'm not against, we just do something that's, like a little more reasonable than 25 or 30 miles, maybe 20 miles. Cause to me, like, I think like Tyndall's like 15 miles, isn't it?
and so are we going to do map miles, driving miles? Which one are we thinking
understand a
about
little more
then?
when
Just
you look
because,
at
just so we're clear,
Yeah.
right? Is it by the crow flies? Is it by the road?
To be fair, we could
Should be
still do it
commute.
in minutes because just figure out how many minutes it takes to go those miles.
In Bay County with our drivers, that could change.
When school
A lot.
is, when people are
I'm
trying
just
to get
saying,
into school in the morning.
They don't
it
have
can
to
take
be
a
here,
long
but I'm
time.
just saying it kind of sets a perimeter. We have a lot of water around, we have a lot of, I'll say like the crow flies, is a
How many
lot
miles did you
different.
say,
than-
Dave? 25
Well,
miles?
so
That's
X
a
number of
citizen
miles from
miles.
from the city limit, from the municipal boundaries.
From the boundary.
Now, the boundaries I don't know that they could change, but
But
not,
yeah, if we get that new sewer plant, then your
Sure.
boundary's way up there.
but still in Bay County. You're still
Yeah.
requiring Bay County. So, I think you've got less danger there.
I
think
just
within
personally,
Bay County-
because I used to drive 2 hours one way to work,
Same.
25 miles is nothing. I mean, to be real honest, 25 miles
I used
is
to drive
nothing,
4 hours a
especially
day.
depending on traffic.
Right.
Currently, going 4 miles on 77 at 7 o'clock in the morning takes longer than 25 miles.
From
On certain
Tyndall to
roadways.
Mexico Beach.
Exactly.
But my
So
house
I-
at Tyndall is 22 miles.
And we can't project what's going to be the future traffic patterns.
Congestion.
You do know what your county perimeter is, and I think that's a finite.
In my, just my opinion, and you know I don't like the tenure thing, and I think we've addressed that, but if we start getting into so many miles away,
Who's gonna,
yeah, what's gonna happen when the city does this? It gets bigger, and then your mileage changes, and how many times, the contract is renegotiated, what, annually or biannually?
Every 3 years.
Every
I think it's
3
a 3-year term.
So
this
we
one's
just
a
say we're in
3-year
Bay
term. It can be,
Yeah, I'm Bay County.
Keep
Yeah,
it, just
Bay
keep it
County's
simple.
enough.
Yeah, keep it
In the
simple.
county.
I live in Bay County.
But now, another thing, and this is from Corey, if we had a 24B, now I'm not being serious, all right? A 24B, do we then say the city clerk and the attorney and, I mean,
All
surely
heads.
we don't want to get into that.
It's totally up to y'all. It's totally up to y'all. But I would ask for feedback.
No,
I would ask for feedback if it's important on the, within how many months after his appointment he shall establish residence. Because to get rid of the during his tenure language, I want to replace that with after his appointment.
Isn't that what
In the
you said
HR world,
as
6 months
determined
to
by
a
the
year.
I
commission?
mean, 6 months
For
is pretty
time frame.
standard.
I would,
standard.
I personally would lean more towards 12, just
Well, 6
because
to 12, yeah.
yeah, because I know how long it takes
Market
to sell a
conditions
house,
and
to
such.
buy a
Yeah.
house, to move,
Yeah.
to physically move. I think 1 year is probably
So
fair.
I know we're leaning towards the same Bay County, but just for frame of reference, I wanted to just show everybody. I did from City Hall's address a 15-mile radius circle. So I just kind of want to show that image of what that looks like. Yeah, I know. Techie. But that's kind of what 15 miles looks like. So
I
if
do
we
that on Marketplace.
if we were to do I hate marketplace. If we were to do a distance set like that, that's kind of what we're looking at. And it does get a little bit
See how that
intricate there
works?
if you're doing a distance. What's that?
See how that works?
That looks fair to me.
But I mean, like, so to me, like 15 miles isn't bad.
Filled in a bunch of-
But it does get a little bit odd because it's like you have to go through all this extensive work to determine if you're that close. And I'd hate for somebody to be like, oh, well, we determined it, and then somebody else is like, well, I found out that they're 100 yards outside.
Yeah, you're 50 feet
you know?
past.
So
outside.
I'm okay conceding and saying within the county. I think it's reasonable. I just wanted to present what that looked like.
Most people are not going to reside in Mexico Beach and be a city manager. I wouldn't think.
And to Corey's point,
Especially if they're having to move here or something.
if you get a commissioner years from now with an axe to grind, and you said 15 miles, as God is my witness, they're going to drive, and if it's 15 miles and 1 foot,
I'm gonna say
they're
you're
going
out
to
of
bring
the-
it up. And then you got all kinds of problems.
What
That's
about the duration? So you want a specific time. What's wrong with what Ryan said as far as determined by the commission? As far as the time?
Well, Corey's
As it
kind of
can
saying is rather than bothering with letting the commission decide every single time, we're just going to say within the county and within 12 months. So if let's say somebody who lives in just on the Mexico Beach, right? Isn't like the east part of it technically in another county?
St. Joe is in another, St. Joe.
St. Joe.
Yeah, that-
Okay.
County.
So it's like,
All the way up.
yeah, it's like one of those situations where it's right
Yeah,
there. Like
yeah.
you can
How are you
stand
going
on
to
both
deal
sides.
with someone who's coming from out of state, though? If you
Well,
give them
they-
a year to come,
Yeah.
do they get to work remotely for a year?
No, in my mind, I mean.
Is that a
they'll get-
contract issue?
They'll get to work right away, but I imagine they may get an apartment in Panama City Beach because that's what's
Right.
immediately available. And
I don't know if that
their
goes to
family
contract or
comes.
what, but it'd be like
As long as-
immediately you have to be on.
I mean,
That's
we
the contract language, which is
I mean,
the
because
start date.
technically during tenure right now, like if we had hired the individual that lived up in North Carolina or whatever,
Just stay there.
I mean, it's the same argument, right? Like, well, when do you got to move here?
Well, like with the police chief, we had a agreed upon start date that
Yeah.
he had to be present in Bay County.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, the
simple
city
in
doesn't.
person.
The city doesn't allow remote work, though, right?
Yes, we do.
Sure, there's some
Yeah.
circumstances.
Okay. But that's not something to decide in the charter, right?
But I wouldn't assume this position should be considered
Absolutely not.
remote.
That's impossible.
We could say
I'm not
permanently relocate. We
Within
could add the
12
word
months.
permanently relocate within 12 months. And I think maybe, hopefully, that would. And again, I don't want to cause any confusion, but the intent there is that, hey, if you need to get an apartment here, to show up to work, do that. But eventually, you need permanent.
And that's also
Exactly.
usually written in the contract or the offer.
I mean, if they want to rent an apartment within the county for the entire time they're city
That's
manager,
just-
that doesn't
That's
bother
already
me.
there.
Yeah, as long as you're
I mean-
physically residing within the county,
You're
that's
here.
kind of what we're saying.
Yeah, you're here.
Yeah.
So I don't think that matters.
Like, I guess what's the, like I did earlier, with finding a way around the rules, right? Somebody joked and they're like, "We're going to call you Loophole Ryan." I'm like, "Well, I work in contracts law. It's kind of my job is to find the loopholes and shut them down." So what's the loophole on this that we're talking about right now? Is there a loophole that a city manager candidate could say, well, yeah, I'm hired and I'm within 12 months I'm going to live there, but right now I live in Dothan, Alabama.
Yeah, so the loophole essentially is that he buys a house here in Bay County, but is spending all of his time in his house in Dothan with his family.
Yeah.
In Florida, the law is your home is where you say it is. So
Right.
if you have
That's
that
the
that
Ron
statement
Brent
of
thing that
intent
happened,
plus
right?
one piece of evidence that supports that, a driver's license, a utility bill, something, it's not up for any of us to disprove. The law will defer to the person who says this is where my homestead is.
Yeah.
So that is the loophole, but I don't know how to close it or fix it based on Florida law.
Okay. But Lynn Haven literally experienced that with former Commissioner Friend, right? Where he had like a residency within Lynn Haven and there was a dispute about it, but the law said,
It's where you say it is.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you can't just be receiving mail. It has to be like like you said, a
It's
power
a
bill or a
statement
water
of
bill.
intent.
186
Yeah.
days or something.
Okay.
However, I think the way that would be handled is by the performance of that particular officer.
Right.
And if the commission wasn't pleased with response time or availability,
That'd
those
be
become
addressed.
Right.
performance factors
Yeah.
based on the contract.
So that's more operational again and not,
Right.
okay. So within the county and within 12 months.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think Miss CJ, as awesome as she is, has already kind of
Yeah,
put that
she's
out there. Are we ready to kind of go through this?
Oh, not tenure. Take out the word tenure. It's
Yeah. I understand that.
Appointment?
appointment.
Instead of their appointment, it's probably his and
Time of his
his.
appointment.
His.
Oh yeah, we don't want to get through that whole thing again, like
I've done a gender
he versus their.
a gender transformation in a charter before, and everything is he, she.
Well, it was literally suggested in the last committee, but it became a whole big thing about
He is.
liberal ideas.
So
I remember
I've
listening
done
to
it
that.
before, but we're using the master agreement here, so let's just keep it
I mean,
consistent.
you're in the country.
Because I remember Mr. Walker specifically said, "You have a female city manager at the time, and the charter says he and his," and it was a whole big discussion. But I think what the outcome was Florida law dictates that it doesn't matter if it says he,
That's correct.
right?
ACE also has the health department now.
I have no further changes at this time for 24.
Miss CJ, could you move the mouse, please, a little bit? There we go. Thank you.
Need not be a resident of the city or state. Shall reside in Bay County.
Just let me know when everybody's had a chance to. I read slow, so.
I do have a question when everyone's done.
Yes, sir. You got a question?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on verbiage as far as Would it be in the contract then? In other words, when it says, um, need not be a resident of the city or state at the time of the appointment, it would be addressed in the comment, like in person.
So that means that tells the candidates that if you live in North Carolina, you
But
can
I
still
mean,
apply.
but it doesn't speak to, hey, I can live here for the first year and just be city manager. Like, is that addressed in the contract or anything? It says they actually have to be in person in office.
Oh, the in-person, the reporting,
Yeah,
the first
right.
day reporting for duty, yes, it's in the
Okay,
contract.
that's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just wanted to make
operational level where they
Right.
would say this is not a remote
Just wanted to
working
make sure
position.
that-
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
was hearing.
Although some positions can be remote, that's not when they'd advertise as remote.
Okay. I'm good with that, yeah.
So I think based on what we've all discussed, I mean, we've kind of all got together on this, and there is a pretty good draft. If you all feel like there's more discussion that needs to happen, fine. If someone wants to make a motion, fine. It's completely up to you all.
Do we need to wait for proposed ballot language, or are we wrapping this up in some other update with ballot language, or I guess?
Well, if I were going to draft it right now, whether the charter shall be amended to require the city manager to establish permanent residence in Bay County within 12 months of his appointment is what,
So that this is a,
That
is
would
what
be
I would say the
the-
ballot should read.
yeah, like 300 more words you could use.
Yeah, I think regardless of ballot language or not, I mean, I think we can move to solidify this. The ballot language in this instance, I think, is, since it's such a small change, it would probably be pretty easy. But again, that's up to you guys. Yes, we definitely solidify some ballot language, but I don't necessarily think that would hold up
It's not
for
a
the motion. to
yeah,
finish
not
this.
necessarily something that we need to bring back to us.
Correct. Well, it would come back to us
just
for the
motion
ballot
to
language
approve
for the
the draft.
resolution to provide to the
Okay.
commission.
So like, for example, I think the motion would be motion to accept this proposal as noted and have the city attorney prepare a resolution and ballot language and ordinance as appropriate.
Yeah, so just for clarification, a standalone ordinance just for this one matter? Because it's not in an article that's previously addressed. Well, 24 is. So I could put it in the city clerk, or I can keep it separate. It's a separate matter in my mind.
Yes,
But-
got to keep it separate.
Remember, we have three separate ballot questions for proposal number one last night for the city clerk section. So it doesn't really matter. We can provide this to the commission. It's going to be a fourth ballot question, whether it's considered under proposal number one or not. It would be a fourth ballot question. However y'all want to go about that.
I mean, ultimately they decide that anyway, do they not? So, I mean, just
All you can do is prompt,
really present it. So yeah, it's presented in whatever way. So motion to move these proposed changes for city manager residency forward to the commission.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Scray, a second by Mr. Tucker. Any public commentary? There are none. Assistant City Manager, will you call the roll?
Ryan Scray,
Yes.
Tommy Tucker,
Yes.
James Marlar,
Yes.
David Switzer,
Yes.
Corey Langford.
Yes. So motion passes. And just, Ms. Myers, just for clerical purposes, I think it may, and I don't know if we're allowed, but a separate resolution for this may be appropriate. And the only reason I say that is because it was not included last night to the commission. That would be my only reservation on that. I just don't want to add something on top of something I've already briefed and they've not been.
Yeah. If they want to later combine it, they always
Yeah.
before the ballot they can.
We don't want to have
Is that what
something.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
just propose it
Yeah.
separately, and if they want to
Yeah.
combo it, they
Sure,
can.
absolutely. Yeah. If everyone is okay with that, I just
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to put
what
that
I
out.
was-
Yeah, to me that's procedural there.
Okay, let me scroll back up to the agenda here. Okay, so that's agenda number 5 is complete. So moving on to number 6, public comments. There are no public comments, it appears. Item number 7, moving on to item number 7, the next meeting. I was just sharing with some of the individuals here, I don't know who all is here, but I am going to have surgery next month on the 15th, but I should be back for the 22nd meeting. Unless something crazy goes on, it shouldn't be an issue. If it is, I'll communicate that ahead of time, a day or so before, to let everybody know. It's just a tonsil surgery, so hopefully that's
Right.
pretty good time.
So my suggestion is that we have our next meeting on the 8th, and due to when your surgery is, we can either schedule the 22nd with a contingency for the 29th, or just go ahead and just schedule for the 29th.
So,
My only hesitation on just going straight for the 29th is that's a whole extra week of time before that May deadline that we
Wednesday.
it just
impose.
depends on how confident he is.
Right.
Obviously, you can't see the unforeseen.
I'm pretty
So-
confident I'll be ready to go by the 22nd.
I want you to be comfortable.
The 8th has got a workshop on that night from 5 p.m.
What workshop?
The destination Panama City.
Okay.
They can check.
They can change that.
I was really planning on going to that, so.
Is there a commission meeting that 7th?
No.
No,
I could do,
Is there anything that 7th?
no, there was a planning board
plan-
meeting, it got canceled, I think.
I could do the 7th if you guys are available.
I thought I
Tuesday.
I can do the 7th.
I still have planning.
Yeah.
I still, was the planning commission canceled?
I thought I saw something.
They had no agenda items, it said.
Okay. That did come through on
I'm okay with the 7th.
Yeah.
So the 7th and the 22nd?
22nd has got a finance review committee meeting in the morning. No reason why you shouldn't be able to have yours in the evening.
Okay.
Okay.
We
So we'll plan on the
when?
7th and the 22nd tentatively.
April 7th, April 20.
the, are you gonna have a voice on the 22nd?
Yes, ma'am. They said I should be able to talk like right afterwards. It's just the tonsil area.
Might be a little
You
gravelly.
may not be feeling too good.
And if he doesn't,
Yeah.
that's what we always got the vice chair for, right?
Yep, there's quorum without me, so it's.
I can't imagine you not being able-
Yep, Ryan will have it.
Please make sure you can talk.
I appreciate your support, Jamie.
Okay, if
Just
there's,
for the sake of time.
You know, he just doesn't want to have to make all the motions.
if there's nothing else for number 7, move on to number 8, and let's adjourn.